Hello buddies, Murray here and welcome back to my channel, M Stewart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial, we're going to paint this gorgeous sunset over the ocean. I'm going to teach you how to mix paints and how to paint sunset clouds very easily, how to mix colours to create realism with highlights and shadows to create a really realistic sunset, how to paint waves, how to again use shadows and highlights to create depths and distance so you can paint this hyper realistic sunset over the ocean acrylic painting. So let's get into it. So a nice easy tutorial today. You're going to need the following colours: titanium white, cad yellow, cad orange light, rose pink, cad red, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, iris purple, raw umber and ivory black. Now I've got a burnt sienna stained canvas that I've used 2/3 as sky. I've measured the horizon with chalk. We're going to have the sun in the middle as a centre point, and we're going to have some big waves and a nice beach in the foreground with a light effect coming down at the bottom of the painting. So if you'd like to pause the video and copy down the outline, feel free to do so at home. We will, like always, start at the back and work our way forward. So all I'm going to do is get some titanium white and I'm just going to create a little semicircle. The reason I use chalk where I'm going to have things like white and yellow is so I don't get horrible dark colour that when I paint pastel colours over the top you can see through it. So I always use chalk just here in the background just to imply where I want things like the light. Because if I use the big dark burnt sienna, you can probably see it underneath that bright yellow. And don't worry, you don't have to paint your canvas burnt sienna. I always just do it because I can see where I need to thicken the paint up and make my work look more pretty. So I've used some cad yellow around the sun, and then after that I've just added some cad yellow, some cad orange light, a little bit of white to make it more pastel, and a tiny bit of brown. And we're trying to get a sort of a golden colour. So predominantly yellow, a little bit of the cad orange just to heaten her up and make her look more golden, a dot of brown just to suck out the colour, and some white to make it pastel. And all we're going to do, we're just going to blur it into that cad yellow and white mix either side, and we're just going to create a glow on the horizon. So as I say, by using pastel colours, we don't want to have anything dark underneath. We want to make this nice and soft and look like a gorgeous glow as the sun goes down. So I'm just getting a bit of cad yellow, and while the paint is wet, I am literally just going to smear that and create a glow for the setting sun. So we're just going to try to smear the colours so the transitions look nice and smooth. So just blend it really gently, just take your time. We just want to have more yellow around the sun to create that sort of flame effect. And then as we move up into the paint, we're just going to get a little bit darker. So just over here to the left, and the same on the other side to the right. As we're going away from the light source, we're just making it a little bit darker. So we're just adding a tiny bit of that cad orange light. Cad orange light is like a pumpkin colour. So it's just really nice bright orange. And then while that's drying, we're going to make a blue colour. So we're going to clean our brush. Don't please use the same brush because you'll get green. So get a nice clean brush. We're going to get some cerulean blue and cobalt blue. We're going to a tiny bit of red just to make it a bit more purpley. We're going to have loads of white. And we should get this nice pastel darker blue. And then we're going to get cerulean blue and cobalt blue. We're not going to add any red. And we're just going to put lots and lots of white in it, really lots of white, more white than anything. And we're going to make a pastel version. So we've got two colours. We've got a darker, more purpley blue at the top and a lighter blue. And what we're going to do, we're going to use the lighter blue at the bottom. And this is going to be as the sun sets, we get the blue sky and the cooler colours in the top of the painting. But because there's more light at the bottom, this colour blue is going to be a bit more lighter in shade, hence the fact it's more pale by adding lots of white. We're going to try not to blend it into that yellow because we don't want to get green. So just leave a tiny gap. If you see there's a bit of burnt sienna sticking through, there's a tiny gap, like about a little millimetre, because I don't want to blend it just yet. You can dry your work if you're uncomfortable. You can just use a hairdryer and just dry it before you put on this blue, so you don't mix the yellow and the blue. And then we're going to use the darker blue at the top of the painting to frame the corners and make it look like the light source is getting cooler as it gets further away from the sun. Excuse the light on the tutorial. It is really dark being the winter here in London and raining here, so I'm having to use lights, but I assure you the blue at the top is a lot darker. When it dries you will see. So as I say, the reason I paint my canvas burnt sienna, everyone asks me, that's the most popular question for my channel, why I paint my canvas burnt sienna, is simply for the fact when you're using pastel colours, especially to create something like a sunset which is very light and pastel, if you have a dark colour on your canvas, you can see the streaks where my paint, being acrylic, is water based, is not thick enough, and you can easily tell where you need to thicken up the paint. See in the middle, you can see all that horrible brown, where you need to go over areas and rework it to make it look more professional. So you don't have to paint your canvas, as I say, burnt sienna, but it just helps, hence the fact that's why I do it. If you prefer painting on white, go for it. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to add a little bit more white to that mix. It was cerulean blue, cobalt blue and white, and then the other one was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, a dot of red and less white at the top. And all we're going to do, we're just going to add a little bit more white. I'm just going to make it more pastel. Now this is all dry now. My painting, I've dried it with a hairdryer. So now as I come down into that yellow, if I go over the top of it, that yellow and gold is dry. So even if I go over the top of it and just blend it slightly, it's not going to mix. It's not going to create a horrible green. So I'm just going to create this lighter colour at the bottom. And I'm just going to create... Oh no! I've got black on my painting. Ah! So unfortunately, I had to dry it. That's the great thing about acrylics. You can dry your work. There's nothing you can't fix. And then just go over the paint. I used a wipe to clean it off. And then just went over the top. So as I say, acrylics are really forgiving. So if you do make a boo-boo like me, I try to leave them in the tutorial so you can see everyone makes mistakes. Not everyone does everything perfect the first time. Practice makes perfect. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just blending that lighter colour into the darker blue. I'm going to get some of the darker blue now. And I'm just going to create X shapes with my brush. I'm just going to blend that into the lighter blue. So the transition from one colour to another is very faint. And it looks like it's getting darker as you move to the top of the painting. So with the tutorial, they're for beginners and intermediate painters. So if you find I'm going too fast, just pause the video. And if you find I'm going too slow for you, you can always fast forward it. But what you want to do is just gently blend and create X shapes between the darker blue and the light blue, just so your transition from one to another is barely noticeable. So we've got this nice blended sky. And when you're happy with it, we're going to mix another colour. We're going to add a little bit of the golden colour. Just a little bit, so some white, some yellow and a tiny bit of orange. We're going to add some purple to that mix. So white, tiny bit of yellow, tiny bit of orange and a bit of purple. And we're going to get a nice sort of silvery colour with a little hint of yellow. And we're just going to, if you've got a dry canvas, we're just going to create a nice yellowy glow into that light blue. Now the reason you want to dry your canvas is because blue and yellow make green. So by adding a little bit of purple to the mix, it creates this little buffer, this little safe zone. So by creating this little bit of purple in the mix and creating a sort of silvery yellow, we can just have this sort of glow. Excuse the focus, my camera's gone a bit crazy. We can have this little bit of glow. And then now we're going to start putting the clouds on top. So we've got this nice blended background with a nice transition from hots to colds with the yellows going into the light blue into the darker blue. So now we're going to put hot colours around the sun. So if you think all these clouds are going to be extremely vibrant and really hot in colour because they're next to a really bright light source. So we're going to use bright cad orange light, this pumpkin colour, to create nice clouds. So I'm going to zoom in for you so you can see what I'm doing. But I've got quite a lot of paint on my little brush, so I'm just using a small little brush. And all I'm going to do is try to create shapes of clouds. Now, because we've got this lovely blended sky in the background that goes from the hot to the cold, we're going to try to match that in the colour of the clouds. So if you imagine if you were holding a candle, everything around the heat source is going to feel extremely hot. So we're going to use orange to imply that. And then as you get further away, we're going to make clouds that are darker. So we're going to add orange, rose pink, and a little bit of brown, and a little bit of purple, and a tiny bit of red, and a tiny bit of cobalt blue. So we're going to make a reddy sort of maroony sort of colour, which is a mixture between hots and colds. So we've got the hot of the orange, and we've got the cool of things like purple and a little bit of cobalt blue, and we've got a little bit of hot again for the red. So it's like a mixture. So think of yin and yang. You've got a little bit of hot, a little bit of cold. And all we're going to do is we've got quite a lot of thick paint. We're going to smear that onto the canvas. So look, we're going to load up our brush, and we're just going to create little breakaway shapes. So look, if you push down against your canvas, you get very, very harsh, dark clouds. So look, push against the canvas, and that thick paint will come off your brush and into the canvas. So all we're going to do, we're just going to create the illusion of these clouds breaking away. So just push, and we just create little dots, little shapes. So the orange is going to be around the light, and that's going to be the most brightest. And as we move to either side, this light's getting a little bit cooler, hence we're using this nice warm, reddy sort of burgundy sort of colour. So we're just linking it up to that warm orange. So just like our background sky, you don't really notice the change in colour. You don't really notice from when the orange ends and the sort of hot pink begins. And if we've done it one side, we want to do it the other side to make it symmetrical, because the light's in the middle. So it's really, really easy once you know the trick. And it's the colours that tricks your eye and creates the realism, you see. So by learning this is what I'm trying to teach you all in all the tutorials. If you learn how to mix realistic colours and apply it to your artwork, you can use this for anything. So round hot areas where there's light, you just use warm colours. And where you want to create shade and darkness and things in the shade, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to use cooler colours. So cool purple. We're going to add a little bit of pink to it. Tiny bit of raw umber brown, just to suck a bit of the colour and make it more grey. And a little bit of cobalt blue to make it cooler. Tiny bit of black. And we should get a nice dark pastel, cool purple. So if you think this area is getting less light, so by adding more cooler colours such as purple and the cobalt blue and the raw umber, we're more in the shade. So again, it's the same principle. We're just merging it into the warmer colour, and we're trying to get the transitions, just like the background sky, to gently merge into one another. So we just gently want to merge it into the warmer, brighter sort of reddy colour. But it's the same principle. I've got lots of paint on my brush, look, and I'm just creating these breakaway clouds. And as I move up into the sky, I'm trying to get more diagonal. So if you imagine where the sun is, we're quite flat. We're almost going horizontal across the canvas. But as we move up into the painting, up into the top of the painting, we're trying to make those clouds go towards the opposite corners, if that kind of makes sense. It's very hard to describe nature. It's very hard to describe what I'm doing. But if you imagine at the horizon, everything's quite flat and going across. But as you go up, you just want to create sort of a diagonal. Look, I'm going a bit diagonal up towards the the corners. Look up towards the corners, so I'm kind of going towards them. And this is a little trick. If you wipe away 90% of the paint, so rather than have a big blob that we were doing to create thick clouds, if you wipe away 90% of the paint and just have a dry brush, no water on your brush so it's nice and soft, you can create the sort of nice wispy fluffy clouds that are really, really subtle. So look, wipe away most of the paint, and then you can just go round the edges of your clouds, and you can just create soft, smooth edges and areas of the painting that are just wispy clouds. So as I say, take your time, there's no rush, go at your own speed. And now we're just going to create some highlights while that's drying. So I'm going to get some white, some rose pink, and a little bit of the cad orange light, and I'm going to create a very pastel, warm, orangey highlight. And these are all the bits of the wispy cloud that get bleached by the sun and create these gorgeous, bright, luminous highlights. So all we're doing, we're just going over the top, and we're doing the same principle. If I want to have really big chunky clouds, I just use lots of paint and I push hard against the canvas like so. And if I want to have really thin ones, I just wipe away or let the paint run out, and I just smear it gently against the canvas, and I get nice wispy ones. And all this is the parts of the clouds that are just getting bleached, so they're really, really bright. So with acrylics, as I've stated in lots of the tutorials, when you lay the paint down, so we're laying this nice bright highlight, it looks really vibrant and it really stands out. But as it dries, sometimes you go back to your painting in an hour and it doesn't look as good. It looks a bit flat. So if you ever find yourself that happens, just give your highlights a second coat of paint. Because what it is when we're laying this bright highlight colour down now, it looks really bright, but what it's going to do, because they are water based, it's going to absorb some of the background sky colour underneath. So if you ever use things like whites and they don't look so bright, or bright yellows, because they're pastel, just like painting over the burnt sienna with the background, just give it a second coat of paint and you can make it nice and brighter. So all I'm doing now this area is all dry, I'm just using some of that cad orange light, and I'm just glazing over the top and just making this area a lot warmer. So we're just going to add some clouds here, and I'm just using the warm orange and then some pink and some of that nice colour that we mixed up. And I'm just trying to make this area look more glowing by using heat. So again, by using all the hot colours, we can imply that this area is getting really lots of sunlight. So all I'm doing, I'm just glazing over the top. I'm just colouring in over that darker purple. I'm just making it nice and bleached. So that area looks really, really nice and bright. I'm just going to get some cad yellow, so just some pure cad yellow. And just around the sun, again, I'm just going to make it look nice and glowing. And that again has a central point. And I'm just going to put in my wonky sun, because it got a bit wonky from painting in the background. So I'm just going to make it more of a semicircle. And then while that's all dry, I'm just going to get some brown and black and add it to that cool purple mix that we used to make it even grayer and darker. And at the very top corners, if you imagine, these areas are almost silhouetted because they're getting hardly any sunlight. I'm just going to create a darker colour. So just like we've got these really bright highlights, we want to create an opposite contrast to that and have really dark shadows. So you can't have one without the other. You can't have the good without the bad. You need one to know what the other one is. So we need these dark shadows so our highlights pop. So there's nice contrast between the two. So there we go. So we've got this lovely background sky, and we'll put some detail on it later. But what we're going to do, we've done all the hard work. That was the hard work. So well done everyone for getting so far. And what we're going to do now, we're just going to colour in our ocean and block that in. So if you imagine the light, just like the sky, is more in the middle because that's where the sun is. So we're going to use our cad orange light, our pumpkin colour, right in the middle here. So all we're going to do is we're going to use this nice bright orange in the middle. You can make cad orange light by just using orange, a little bit of yellow and a tiny dot of white, and you should get this colour. So orange, a little bit of yellow and a tiny dot of white just to make it a bit pastel, and you'll get this colour if you haven't got it at home. And all we're going to do, look, in the middle we're going to create this nice warm glow just like we did in the background sky. And then we're going to use our burgundy colour, which if yours is dry at home, that was pink, orange, a tiny bit of red, a little bit of purple and a little bit of brown. So pink, orange, a tiny bit of red, a little bit of purple just to cooler, and a tiny bit of brown just to suck a bit of the colour out. And all we're going to do is either side to make it symmetrical, we're just going to create a darker colour. It's still nice and warm because it's obviously getting all that sunlight. And we're creating the underpainting. So this is all the ocean that's getting the light. And don't worry if you paint over your chalk or over your outlines at the bottom. We'll neaten everything up as we go along. We just want to blend and get all the basic colours first. So you just use a little bit of the burgundy at the bottom of your water, either side. And as I say, don't worry if you go over your outlines or over the chalk. Just here on the horizon, I'm just softening her up so it looks like the ocean and the horizon are just fading into the distance. And then I'm just going to get some of that cad orange light. I'm just going to go over the chalk in the middle. Chalk is fantastic for planning out a painting. So if you're ever worried about something and you want to create an outline, dry your painting and use chalk. So if you're wanting to add something like a wave or a person, draw it out in chalk first and you can see if it works or not. So I'm going to get some cobalt blue and some raw umber. I'm going to add lots of white to create a pastel grey. So raw umber and some cobalt blue and some lots of white. And I'm going to add a little bit of orange just to warm her up so she's not so cold. And I'm just going to create a nice warm pastel grey brown. And this is going to be our sand. So our sand is going to be a little bit darker. It's not going to be like a tropical beach where it's all nice and bright. This area is going to be really in the shade. So we're going to use this nice pastel sort of browny grey. And we're just going to block in the bottom of our painting and create this nice silhouetted sand. And we've got this blocked in painting now. So we've got this lovely contrast between the really brights around the sun and the darks. So we're going to start creating waves. So we're going to use the top colour that we mixed earlier. And we're going to add a little bit of orange just to make her a little bit more like the sand colour. So the top colour was cobalt blue, cerulean blue, white and a dot of red. We're going to add some orange and brown to the mix just to make it more matching to the sand colour. A little bit of red just to make it a bit cooler and purple. So where you have shallow water, we're going to swap to a flat brush. Where you have shallow water, it mixes in with the sand. So you get a contrast between the ocean colour, which is nice and warm, and that cool sand colour. So by mixing some of the sky colour in that blue and then mixing a tiny bit of the sand colour, we can create this off blue, and we can use our flat brush to create the caps of waves. So a flat brush is really, really good for creating straight lines. And we just want to create sort of wonky straight lines, if that makes any sense. We want to create little divots to look like the caps of waves. And all this does is it looks like the shimmer as the sky reflects on your ocean surface. So from the left hand side, we're coming towards the middle and we're using this cool pastely blue. and we're just creating little divots to create the illusion of the caps of waves. And we're going to do the same the other side, and we're going to leave the middle because we want to create the illusion of heat and light in the middle. So we're going to use these cooler colors either side. So just like the clouds, either side of the light source is a bit cooler. And then we can use this to outline our wave. So we're just going to leave the middle because that's where we're going to have the light source. So just use the flat edge of the brush just to create these little divots. The brush, you can get them in any art shop. They're literally like £1 or $1. They're really, really good for creating straight lines. We're deliberately trying to be wonky because water is more feminine and curvy. So we're deliberately just trying to be a little bit wonky and smooth. So all I'm doing is, as this wave comes into the shore, we're just going to outline her. Just using that sharp edge of the brush just to create the divots. So there we go. This is going to be our big wave in the background. So let's just have some little caps of waves underneath her. And then in the foreground, we're going to have a really shallow wave come towards the shore. So we're just going to outline her. So this is all the bits of water. They're getting some sunlight, but they're still in the shade. So rather than use white, we're using this cool blue. And it will, as I say, all the colours will look really nice and realistic. And we can use this nice sharp edge of the brush to create a nice outline here for our sea foam. So as the water comes up onto the beach, onto the shore, you get this lovely sort of really shallow water and you have that foamy edge. So we can just use that lovely edge of that flat brush just to create a nice thick edge, just to look like a wave. So this is all done. It's all nice and dry. We're just going to block in a shadow colour now for the depths of the wave. So as the water rises up, it's quite deep, isn't it? So we're going to use all the shadow colours that are on the right to create a cool colour. So we're going to create cobalt blue and purple. We're going to add a little bit of orange just to warm her up a little bit because she's going to get in some sunlight. And a little bit of cad yellow. So we've got this nice cool purpley blue with a little bit of orange. We're going to add some cad yellow to the mix just to make her more green. I've added a little bit too much, so no worries. We're going to cool her down by just adding some more cobalt blue and a little bit of orange just to make it a bit browner. So if you see, I've got all the warm colours on the left and all the shadow colours on the right. So for a shadow colour, you want to have predominantly more cool colour. So we're using more cobalt blue than anything. And we're just going to use, look, the sharp edge of this brush just to block in the shadows of this wave. So if you imagine this wave is coming up to the shore, it just buckles up, sort of barrels down, but it's still very shallow as it crashes into the beach. So as I say, just using that flat edge, it's really easy to create straight lines so that you can just go across the page. So it's really handy for painting waves. There's a link in the description box for brushes and things that I use. Obviously, I live in London, so they might be different. But as I say, flat brushes are really, really good. You can get them in any art shop for about £1 or $1. So look, we just go across the page or across the canvas and just create the illusion of a built-up wave. So here we go, just use that edge. So say, don't worry, she's a little bit wonky. Waves are meant to be curvy. So we're just going to get some orange and we're just going to warm her up to create more of a brown. And then in the middle, where the sunlight is poking through, we're just going to make this area a little bit lighter. So again, just like our clouds, it all matches. Just going to add a little bit of red just to warm her up a little bit, pink. So it's going to just make a sort of more purpley, lighter colour. So just here in the middle, the sunlight is going to be beaming through the ocean water. And then we're going to get some white. We're just going to add that to the mix to make it more pastel. And we're just going to create some waves in the middle here. So as we use the cool blue either side, we're just going to use a warmer brown here in the middle. And because this is softer than the harsh, darker waves in the foreground, it pushes it back. So we're doing the same principle. Look, we're just doing some lines with the sharp edge of that brush. But can you see now it looks like it's fading off into the distance because they're not as dark and they're not as harsh. See how that tricks your eye? So if you want to have really harsh things in the foreground, you want to use darker colours. So we're going to get some cobalt blue, purple and a little bit of orange. We're going to add a tiny bit of brown and a tiny bit of black to make her darker. So we're going to use really harsh colours in the foreground. So by adding a little bit of black, I think that's way too much black. Black is really overpowering, so you don't need much. So try to only have a little bit. So I'm just going to add more blue to the mix to soften her up. So I've got really dark, almost Prussian blue here. And either side, so to the left and to the right, I'm just going to make her much more silhouetted. So I'm just going to make her harsher. And what that does, as you see, it brings that wave closer towards you. You see how it makes it more 3D? And just like our clouds that are darker in the corners, can you see that? These edges are going to be getting less sunlight, so they're going to be harsher. And it brings that wave closer towards us. So it's the same principle over and over again, the same tricks. And you can use this on anything. This is what I keep trying to teach you. So let's just blend that into the previous colour. Whoops. And if your painting's dry like mine, look, you can just, if you make a mistake, you can just wipe it away. So we're going to get some of the sky colour that we made earlier at the top of the painting, which was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, a little bit of red and some white. And we're just going to mix a little bit of that dark shadow colour into it. And we're just going to get a smaller brush and we're going to start putting in the waves. So we're going to start building up the waves. So now we've got that dark shadow colour. We're going to create some foam as this wave crashes into the beach. So we're leaving a little bit of that shadow underneath to poke through. And we're just creating the illusion of sea foam and wash as it crashes into the beach. So if you lay the shadows on first, then we can put the highlights over the top and make them look really pretty. So by using this cool blue first, over the top of our darker blue, we can just make this wave look more 3D. So all this water crashes into the shore. So there we go. Easy peasy. So let's just mix them up. And we'll have a wave. Let's have a crashing wave. This could be a really big wave, couldn't it? So let's have it coming down, crashing into the water here, into the ocean. So create some splash here. And then bobbling up. And then going a bit diagonally there. And let's have another bit over here. So it looks like it's building up and then crashing. There we go. Just a little bit of foam on that outer ridge. Same on this side. So it sort of bellies up and barrels over, doesn't it? So we're just going to create that foam. So if I zoom in for you so you can see a little bit better. And then we're just going to create a little bit coming over, so it kind of barrels around on a wave. So we're just going to create some little diagonal lines just so it looks like it's crashing down. You can always outliner with this blue, just so it has a nice bit of sunlight hitting the outer ridge. Don't forget to tag me at mstewartpaintings with your versions of the tutorials. This week, which is kind of amazing, we hit 10,000 subscribers, so thank you so much. I've been very busy with family, obviously, for Christmas and New Year's, but I'm going to do a giveaway, and we're going to do some gifts and thank yous in the next week or so. So thank you so much to everyone who's liked and subscribed. It just shows you, if you put your mind to anything, you can achieve anything. At the beginning of the year, I wanted to hit 10,000 subscribers. I think I had 4,000, and we've more than doubled the channel. And the more and more people who like and subscribe, obviously the more people will get to see more of the videos. So by liking and subscribing, what you're doing is you're helping other artists find the tutorials, which obviously benefits them and serves other people. So thank you so much, everybody. It's all on you. So thank you so much for helping promote the channel. And please, as I say, don't forget to tag me at mstewartpaintings with your versions of the tutorials, because it's fantastic to get to meet people and see all their work. So all I've done, I've got the horizon color, which is light than the darker color, which had a bit more white in it, and it was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and lots of white to make it pastel. And we're just highlighting now we've got these darker colors, we're just using this lighter blue to create a highlight. So as that sun reflects downwards onto the wave, you get this lovely sort of glistening effect where the sunlight sort of shimmers and it catches all these parts of the wave and the wash, and you get, again, just highlights. So by laying the cool blues and the darker blue first, now that we're putting the highlight over the top and in the middle, it again focuses your eyes down the middle and creates the realism. Now we don't want to go too far to the left and right. We want the focus to be in the middle, so we're just going to let that light blue sort of fade into the darker blue as we move to the left. See how that works? And we're going to do the same as we move to the right. Sounds like one of those line dancing, to the left, to the right. So as we move to the right, look, we're just going to leave it to fade out into that darker blue. So it just looks like the light is in the middle. As I say, you can outline your wave if you want to. I'm just using a really fine liner, but we'll neaten up everything in the middle. So I'm just using a fine liner just to outline the wave. It's going to be a bit of sunlight, just making it, give it the edge a little bit of harsh light, a bit like the highlights on our clouds. So I'm just going to take my time and give her a little bit of an outline. You can use a flat brush if you find it easier. So these waves here, they're going to be glistening. So they're going to be picking up a lot of this harsh sunlight. So we're just going to make the divots underneath really bright. The same theory, but can you see now how we just laid that paint on the wave and it's already blended in, it's already dried a bit flat. So as I say, if you want to make your highlights a little bit brighter, just wait for her to dry and then just go over the top with a second layer of paint, because those highlights on that wave were extremely bright, weren't they, just a few minutes ago? But with the magic of editing, you can see they've already started to blend into that darker blue because the water-based paints have just absorbed it. So same principle, we're trying to have the bright highlights in the middle. And then what we're going to do, we're going to get some cobalt blue and some of the darker sky colour. And we're just going to make it a little bit darker. We're going to add some black. to make it grayer. Just make it a little bit darker. And we're just going to outline our edge here. So if you imagine one edge is going to be getting the light and the other edge is going to be getting the shade, because it's underneath, and creating a shadow. So by just using a cooler blue, by adding some cobalt blue to it, we're just making this outer edge a little bit darker, just to make it look more 3D. So we're just going around the bottom of this edge just to make it darker. And then we're just going to use the sky colour at the top of the painting just to blend it together. So you have one side that's light, one side that's in the dark. So as I say, take your time, there's no rush. Don't forget, if you have any ideas for tutorials, just put them in the comments below. It's always good to hear people's ideas. I'm going to hopefully do... My main job is to paint seascapes for customers and things, but if there's anything you want to learn, just shout and I'll try to include them in the tutorial. So there we go. So we've got this darker edge at the bottom and the lighter edge at the top. And then we're going to use this blue to create sea foam. So where you have the shallow water, you get loads of bubbles and foam as it comes up onto the beach. So we're just going to create zigzags with a fine liner, and we're going to link it up to that nice sort of marshmallowy edge that we've just put in. So all we're doing, we're using that cool blue to create little zigzags and splats, and this is all the sea foam. So just the same principle, we want to link it all up, have that nice soft edge, and we want to have this darker blue either side of the middle. The reason we don't use white is white will make it look comical. By having this blue, again, when we zoom out in a minute, this will create the realism, this will trick your eyes. So we're just using this blue all the way around. So if we've done it on one side, we're just going to match it on the other side. Just have all these splats and zigzags. There we go. If we zoom out, it's starting to take shape. And then we're going to get the lighter blue, which had more white in the mix. And do the same principle. We're just going to create zigzags in the middle that are a little bit brighter and just create this outer ridge so it looks like it's glistening in the sunlight. And again, we're going to leave it to fade out as we move to the outer part of the painting, to the edges. So we're just going to create a nice sharp ridge. And then as we move to the left, we're just going to leave it to fade out into that darker blue we just laid. And the same here on the right. So it just fades out, look, so you just don't even notice it changing colour. And then we're just going to put some zigzags that are highlighted in the middle. So same principle, just create a few dots and splats and have some of these zigzags coming out and just fade it off into the darker blue. So look, as we move towards the edge, we're just using less paint and we're just fading off as it mixes into that darker blue. We'll do the same here in the middle, going out to the left. Just use lots of paint in the middle, let the paint run out and fade it off towards the edge. How easy is that? Same principle all the way around. So let's have a little few highlights just here in the middle. So it all looks a bit scruffy because we haven't put any of the detail on, but don't worry. We're going to take the darker colour that we mixed up for the wave, and then we're going to use a fine liner and we're going to start putting some of the finer detail on. First, we're just going to create a really sharp edge underneath the wave. So as it comes up onto the shore, it's obviously going to have a dark edge that's getting no sunlight. We don't want to use pure black, so just like pure white, it will look comic-y. So by using this dark shadow colour, all the colours match. So we're just outlining her. Again, if you use a fine liner, it's so much easier because you can get a really nice sharp edge. Cost about £1 or $1. So rather than using a big chunky brush, just use a really thin bristle one, and you can get much more sharper detail. It's almost like a fine liner pen. So just relax, enjoy your work. It's the whole point of painting. And again, look, just go over it twice. If it looks if it blends into the previous colour, if you want to make it sharper, just go over it twice. And then we're just going to get some paint, and we're going to do the same now. We're going to start putting some of the detail in. So underneath, it's going to cast a really dark shadow as that wave bellows in. So we're going to go underneath the wave and create a nice dark shadow using that colour. So again, by having a harsh, dark outline, it contrasts lovely with the highlights. And we're just going to link that up to the left. There we go. And let's do the same on the right. If you ever find that your paint dries really quick and you have to remix it, you can always buy a water sprayer for something like what you spray plants with, and just spray your palette. So spray your palette every 5-10 minutes, and then hopefully your mixes that you're creating throughout the tutorial don't dry, because I know with acrylics some people find them a bit too quick to dry. So what I'm doing, look, I'm outlining them now with this really thin brush. Just so it looks like the wave is curling over. So that deeper water, it's got a nice dark edge, and it just sort of curls over. And it just gives the work a bit of definition on the wave. So I know a lot of people struggle at home with how to paint ocean water, how to paint waves, how to paint clouds, and how to paint a sunset. So hopefully this tutorial is covering all these things that you have questions with and you struggle at home. But as I say, if you ever want to learn something, just put them in the comments and I'll try to include them in future tutorials. And then we're just going to put some divots here, just on this outer edge, really fine. We're not going to go super hyper realistic today because it's a tutorial for beginners and intermediates. I don't want to make it ridiculously hard. But if you've ever got a reference photo, you can apply these principles with all the colours, and then you can work on the fine detail to make it look photorealistic. All the differences between a photorealistic painting and one of these tutorials is just time and patience. Have you got the patience to do something exactly? Have you got the discipline? So as I keep saying to you, take what I'm teaching you and apply it to what you want to apply it to, and make your art look even better. So I'm just using that really sharp fine liner just to create some darker waves. So remember, we wanted to save our darkest darks to the foreground. And when I mean foreground, I mean something that's nearer to you. So by keeping your darkest darks, it brings these waves closer towards the viewer. And by having pastel colours in the background for those waves, it pushes those waves back. So again, same principle. We're just going to make a bit of a shadow here. We're going to outline this one. So underneath, it's going to cast a shadow and give it a bit of a definition. We can even just put some little divots. And if you find your wave is wonky like me, you can straighten her up. So let's put a bit of a shadow underneath. So can you see how fine that brush is? It makes my life so much easier. So having the right tools really, really helps. And none of these things are expensive. So you can get a multi-pack for say £5 or $5. So you don't have to break the bank to use great equipment. So we're just going to outline her here, create some of this sea foam wave. And the same on this outer bit. She casts a shadow. And here where this one is crashing in, let's make her a little bit darker. So let's just outline her. So I'm trying to cast more of a shadow at either side, and I'm trying to have it a little bit lighter here in the middle, just so it looks like the sunlight is peeking through the wave, hence the fact we've got a bit of that orangey brown. But this side's going to be really dark, so I'm just going to make the top of this wave a little bit harsher, a little bit straighter because she was a bit wonky. When you're really close to your painting, sometimes things look straight because you're just literally on top of it. So a good rule of principle, I always edit it out, but I always just take a step back or two. And I'm going to get my flat brush here, and I'm just going to make these waves a little bit harsher. So again, flat brush is excellent for straight lines. So if you struggle like me to have a steady hand, use a flat brush. It will make your life so much easier. So again, we want the middle to be less harsh. We want either side to be a bit more harsh to darken her up. And then we're just going to get some red and some orange, a little bit of brown, so red, orange and raw umber brown, tiny bit of cobalt blue just to darken her up, and some purple just to make her more flat. And we're just going to get this reddy brown colour, and again with my fine sharp fine liner, I'm just going to make these waves a bit more detailed and not as chunky. So as I say, the principle's the same, work on the colours, but if you want to add more detail, more refinement, you just got to spend longer, that's all it is. But the colours and everything are the same principle, but by using the brushes that you need and by taking your time, you can just refine areas of your painting and rework areas and just have that mental discipline to try not to be distracted, try to enjoy it. I made a video a long time ago about things that help me get in a good state, and one of the things I do is I always make my own music, not like I sing it or anything because I'm terrible, as in I make playlists and I have everything ready as I'm painting, so I don't have to stop I have all my paints ready, I have my water, I even have a drink handy. And then because you have music on the go that you enjoy, and you're nice in this relaxed state, you tend to get in a flow much easier than if you were distracted. So if you have the news on or something, a lot of the time the news is so deliberately depressing, so negative, there's never anything positive. Well, it pulls you out of being in a good mood and you get distracted, which is the whole point of it. So you click on it and they get advertising. So a good way is to keep yourself, by being disciplined, keep yourself less distracted and more in this flow state, and you'll find that your work will be easier. So what I'm doing here, I'm using titanium white and I'm coming straight down from the sun to create a shimmer that the sunlight is beaming down onto that ocean. So now we've got all the details starting to take shape. We're trying to use this bright white, just like we used our harshest darks, to create a really bright light effect. So as I say, I'm really close. So I thought it was straight, but I think it's a bit wonky. So I'm going to use this white just here in the middle to highlight these waves even more and to make them sparkle. So by saving this harshness of this bleach white to the last bit, again we can get the viewer to focus down the middle. So if you think the sun is white, it's like a big ball of unbelievable light. And then we're going to use Naples yellow, which I've got pre-mixed because I'm lazy, but it's basically just loads and loads of white and some cad yellow. You can add a dot of brown just to make it more pastel, but it's just cad yellow, lots and lots of white to make it nice and buttery, and you can add a dot of the brown. And we're just going to go round our sun just to make it more of a glow. And again, we're just gently blending it into the cad yellow either side. So again, it just looks like the sun is unbelievably bright and it's creating a glow in the middle. And then we're just using that really bright titanium white to create a little circle and have a focus point in the middle. And we can do the same for the shimmer. So we can use the white coming straight down, and then we can use the Naples yellow either side of the middle. So we have the white coming straight down in the middle, and then we just use the Naples yellow either side so it looks like the sunlight is glowing. So again, we can do the same principle. So if you think yellow goes into orange as it cools, so by mixing some yellow and orange and white, we can create a lovely pastel peachy colour. And we can do the same outline in the Naples yellow. So we go from white to Naples yellow to this peachy orange, and we've just created this lovely glow effect of sunlight on our ocean water. So really easy. See, look at that. And then because it looks a bit blurred and a bit standout-ish, what we're going to do is we're just going to blend it from the middle to the outside, and again leave it to fade out into the previous darker orange, just like we did with the ocean waves and the clouds. And this will trick the eyes and create a glow. So look at that. So we haven't got this horrible jump just from one colour to another. We want all the transitions to be nice and soft, nice and natural. So look at that. So let's blend it. Just take your time, there's no rush. And it should look like the sunlight beaming down into the middle. So let's just blend this middle bit. And it will look so natural. Because there's a big gap in the middle, we're going to get some of that Naples yellow, and we're going to add lots and lots and lots of white to it. So it's just a dot of yellow, but predominantly white. So a dot of yellow and predominantly white. I've got it pre-mixed because, as I say, I do this all the time. And it saves me time by having things pre-mixed. And all we're going to do is we're just going to go over these highlights. So as I say, if your paint is not fully grasping to the canvas, just dry your work with a hairdryer and go over the top of it, and it will make it extremely vibrant by giving it a second coat of paint, sometimes even a third coat. But as I say, that's the difference between getting this effect. It's just literally having the patience to dry work and putting it over the top. So we're just putting that shimmer here on the wave. And then we're going to do the same principle with the sea foam. So where we've got the cool colours either side, we've got the warm colours in the middle on all aspects of this painting. And then we can use that on the outer ridge to give a really glow of that wave. Look at that. So look at that, it looks like it's absolutely bleached, that light. So as I say, if you're painting or drawing anything, you can use these colours to create this effect. And we're going to create the sea foam and the wave with that colour to look like it's glistening in the sunlight. So let's have a few little bits that are glistening. It fades out. Same here, just on this outer ridge. Let's just go over the top. So see, as it dries, I just go over the top to make sure it's nice and vibrant. And then we're going to do our zigzags, but now in this white with a tiny bit of yellow, just to make it sparkle. So now that fades into the lighter blue, and the lighter blue fades into the darker blue, and that's what creates the realism. So it's not the detail, it's the colours. You see that bottom of that wave, how realistic that looks? And you think we're zoomed in. Imagine this is on a wall and you're standing a few foot back. This painting will look real. So as I say, you don't have to be the most gifted, you don't have to be the most detailed. Learn the colours. Learn the techniques. So our water and our waves are looking awesome, our sunset waves. So I'm just going to get some bright cad yellow. I'm just going to highlight this area. I'm just going to make it a little bit brighter now it's dry. Just create that glow a little bit more. Just between the Naples yellow and the orange. I'm just going to add a little bit of cad yellow. Just to give it a bit of a hum, a bit of a glow. And then just have some of that peachy orange again, just either side, just to emphasize it. So as it was picking up that darker orange, it's just dried a bit flat. So I'm just going over the top again for the second time. So now that looks brighter and I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with my ocean wave and my shimmer. I'm just going to darken up either side. So again, to create the focus in the middle. So by complementing that with some pink and some orange to make that sort of darker colour. Let's add some purple to make a greyer and browner. I'm just going to shade to the left and to the right with more of that burgundy colour to make it a little bit harsher, a little bit darker. And what that does is it just complements the middle by making either side a little bit darker, so it makes the middle look brighter. So by just going over the top, I'm just glazing over the top. I want to make this area really soft, because I want to make it look like it's fading out into the distance. So no harsh lines as the sky and the ocean meet. But just on the edges, so if you come in from the left or from the right, just make your edges of your painting look a bit darker. It just warms up the painting. And it just makes the focus in the middle look a bit brighter. So our ocean is pretty much done. I'm just going to take some of that warm brown and just in the far distance, now we've put the shimmer in, I'm just going to put some sharper waves going through the shimmer so it looks like the light is going around the waves. See how that works? Just by going back over. Now the shimmer's put in, we're literally just using that nice warm brown to create these harsher waves underneath. So we've got the warm colour in the middle and the darker blue to the left and to the right in the shade. And you can use really thin ones off in the distance. Try to have them very flat, so very horizontal. And it will just look like these waves are just fading off into the sunset. So as I say, if you ever get nervous, dry your work, and then if you ever make a mistake or anything, you can always use a baby wipe and your lovely blended painting will still be there underneath. So I'm just adding some fine detail now. The painting always comes together right at the end. And then I'm just going to get some of the dark shadow colour that we use for the waves. And I'm just going to make this part a little bit harsher around that shimmer. Just neaten her up. So just make her a little less bobbly, just a little bit straighter. Same here at the bottom where that light is coming through. So always is just refining. Now you've put the colours in, just refining the detail over the top. Let's just have just under here a little bit darker because that would be casting a shadow as it barrels over. And just here, nice and harsh. The same here at the bottom. Look at that, it's starting to look really realistic. Just give the outer edge just a little detail, a little bit of shade. So now I zoomed out, it's starting to look really realistic. So we're just going to put some finishing touches on it. So we're going to get some of the darker shadow colour we use for the wave. And we're going to use our fine liner and we're just going to put some divots in our sand. So these are all just where the sand comes up under the wave. You might have terrain and footsteps imprinted in the sand. So it's up to you. You can even do some seashells, little footprints. You could even have a little seagull or a dog. As I say, make your painting your own and unique. Think outside the box. So I'm just putting little divots in the sand just to create some of the realism. So again, just have loads in different directions. Just to add a bit of texture. There we go. And then if I zoom in for you, we're just going to add some sky holes and things in the clouds just to finish her off to create some realism. So I'm just going to get a fine liner and some yellow. I've got some cad yellow. Just going to create a little bit of a glow around this cloud. So a really easy way to make your clouds look more realistic is now we've got this lovely blended background and we've got all the colours correct, is to do a little technique called sky holes, where you poke holes in your clouds and it looks like little bits of the sunlight and the background sky poking through it. So all we're going to do is we're going to match the colours. So at the bottom here it was more of that yellowy gold. So I'm just using some cad yellow just to poke some little holes here in the clouds. Again, using a really small brush, so it's really easy to get some fine detail. So really subtle. So let's have a few just down here. And again, if your painting's dry and you make a mistake, you can just wipe it away. And then as we move up into the sky, I'm going to use some of the blue and just do exactly the same technique. So look, I'm just poking little holes, changing the shapes of those clouds to make them look more realistic. So I'm just poking these holes. And because the sky and the colour all matches, again it just tricks the eye. All our transitions look perfect. There we go. Sorry about the light. A massive cloud has just come past in real life and made my video look really dark. Bloody cloud. Oh. So look, it's the same principle, which is using the lighter blue in the middle of the painting. And as we move up, we're going to use the cooler blue, which was cerulean blue, cobalt blue, a little bit of red to make it more purpley and less white. And we're just going to do the same on these harsh clouds to make them less harsh and make them look more realistic. So we're just taking a bit of the cloud shape out. We do this a lot on the forest paintings when we're painting leaves and things. So that's starting to look super real. And while that is drying, we're going to get some of the highlighted shimmer colour, which was white and a tiny bit of cad yellow. And we're just going to put some really sharp highlights now. So as I was saying previously, those highlights look really nice, but we want them really to pop. We want them to look really, really bright. You can cheat and you can use a little bit of oil paint. That is a way to make your work look hyper realistic. So we will do some tutorials where we combine oil paint and acrylics. But this is an acrylic painting tutorial, and appreciate not everyone has access. So as I say, to make your highlights look brighter, sometimes you just got to give them a second coat. And we're doing the same principle. We're poking some of these sky holes with a fine liner and just refining the clouds and making them look more realistic by just poking these little gaps and giving them a little bit of an outline, and it just looks like some sunlight going around the clouds and bleaching it. So as I say, take your time. You can even have some look breaking away. So even where there wasn't a cloud, you can create some little breakaway ones. Just here, look, so it just looks like the light is shimmering in the sky. Give some an outline, so it looks like it's going round the cloud. So let's have some going, again, same principle, look, we're going off diagonally towards the corners. So let's do it same this way. And then just to finish out, I'm just darkening up either side, just with a bit of blue and black. Just on the left and just on the right. Just so the middle looks less harsh, but either edge looks nice and harsh. So by using some blue and black, make this outline look really dark. So cobalt blue, some black to make a Prussian blue. But we don't want to go in the middle, we just want to do it on the outer sides. So same look with this harsh outline. So by giving it a second coat of paint, I keep saying it's repetitive, but it works. It's easy and it works. That's the formula. That's what we like. Repetition, repetition, repetition. So I'm just trying to make my waves a little bit more straight, because I think when I first did them, they were a bit wonky. So again, just taking your time and just making them a bit more square, a bit more straight. They just look a bit more natural. So by having this really dark, harsh blue and black to the left and to the right, again, it's the same principle as the shimmer. It's just making the middle look softer and more bleached in the light. So let's just make this one a little bit straighter, a little bit darker, harsher. So just make her a little bit straighter. There we go. So I'm just letting the paint fade out as I move towards the middle. Same principle. So I'm using my finger just to smear her, make it softer. I'm just going to make the top half a little bit straighter. As I say, you can use a flat brush if you find that easier. I think it's easier for me to use a fine liner. And we do the same on the underneath, just so all the light matches. And the same on the outline. So harsh on the edges and light in the middle. Do the underneath, just so that matches. Oh, she's looking so pretty. I'm just going to bring a few of these waves closer, just a bit sharper. Just so there's not so much a jump. Just want them a little bit darker, so it looks like they're coming towards the beach. So just going to soften them up using my finger. So where we put this darker red, I'm just going to go over the shadows just to put them back in. So just like we do with the shimmer, if you change anything, just go back and rework areas. So we're just going to have some sharper little divots here in the foreground. Now we've got that cooler red. So by putting these divots back over the top, you won't notice the transition underneath. Look at that. And then we're just going to get some cat orange, and I'm just going to get a dry brush. I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow and white, just a tiny bit. I've got a completely dry, soft brush, and all I'm going to do, I'm just going to wipe away 90% of the paint, and I'm just going to make the horizon and the sky just a bit softer, so it looks like it's just fading off into the distance. So you don't really notice where the water ends and the sky begins. So again, it's just to make it nice and soft, and it just makes it look like it's going far off into the distance and it's disappearing, that you're looking out to sea. And then just here, I'm just making this edge a little bit more pretty because it's a bit ropey. Just put my highlights back. So the last finishing touches is where all the magic happens and creates the realism. So just the same principle, we can just have some of that white with a tiny bit of yellow, just creating a shimmer on the outlines of these sharp waves with our fine liner. And I think she's pretty much done. I think we'll put one little sharp edge here and we'll finish her off, and she'll look super realistic. So I've signed her in the bottom left hand corner. So you've learned how to create a glow, how to create an underpainting that the transitions match. We've learned how not to get a green sky, how to darken our corners, how to paint a sunset over the ocean and sunset clouds, how to create shadows and highlights, how to create shimmer on your ocean water, how to paint realistic waves that come towards the viewer, how to paint sea foam, and how to paint sand. So a really super easy but yet really realistic acrylic painting tutorial. Thank you so much everyone. Happy New Year, and thank you so much for all the support for the channel. I hope 2023 brings you lots of prosperity and health and success and lots of painting. So take care guys, my name is Murray. See you soon. Bye now.